Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here with your off-season edition of the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion. It is Monday, May the 11th, 2020, and this will be the last of the off-season monikers. That little word there, off-season, we're going to take the off, and after today, so next week, it's going to be just the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion. Why is that? Because the Eastern Pacific hurricane season begins on May 15th, and we're pretty much in hurricane season. I mean, we're going to be talking about the potential for a typhoon. People texting me. It's busy around here. And maybe something trying to brew in the Atlantic. So you know what? This is the last off season. After today, we're going to change the title and maybe even the background there. And it's the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion. Anyway, glad you could join me today. Let's take a look at this. This is what replaced the NOAA NESDIS anomaly chart. This is now the NOAA Coral Reef Watch. And at least this is every day. It's always a day behind, from what I understand. So at least we don't have to just get it 2 days a week. You remember it's like Monday and Thursday? At least I can look at this every day for the day before, if that makes sense. Anyway, what does it show? Well, these are departures from normal. That's what that word anomalies means. The departure from normal, and look at that. In the Pacific there, the equatorial region, that blue ribbon stretched out, that is colder water relative to average that is starting to show up. In the Atlantic basin here, it's all pretty much warmer than average. And it just depends on what data set that you look at. You know, you may have some variances, but overall, the pattern still favors a positive Atlantic for development of hurricanes and a negative Pacific. This is just going to strengthen. This may or may not. We'll just have to wait and see. It doesn't really matter to me how warm relative to average this area is, the main development region. You know, if it's like really warm or really cold where it's really noticeable, that's one thing. But we know that by, let's say, August, September, October, this region through here will be warm enough. 80 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. It's more of the areas back to the west over here that I'm more concerned with because, hey, that's where we live. Nobody lives out here unless they're on a boat. You know, we got people that live in the Cabo Verde Islands, Cape Verde Islands, and there's people that live in the Caribbean, but not in between. There's shipping interests, but I'm not as worried about it. And in fact, if this is just a little cooler than average or about where it should be, and you get strong tropical waves, they may not develop out here and curve out to sea as much. Anyhow, getting ahead of myself, but nothing has changed in the thought process that we've been talking about for months, and that would be that we would develop on La Nina, perhaps, certainly no El Nino, in the tropical Pacific, and we would have a warmer than average Atlantic. I mean, look, it even goes up into the northeast Atlantic, starting to develop that warm AMO look a little bit. If we were to look at the entire North Atlantic, it is much colder, though, way up in the far North Atlantic. And I know I'm just getting into the details here that probably are not that interesting, but anyhow, the bottom line, nothing's changed. Hurricane season's almost here, and it looks to be quite favorable. We can see this on a graphical plot here from Levi Cowan's site, Tropical Tidbits. The plummeting of the Nino 3.4 region, which, by the way, we're talking about this area. Well, if I can click on it and point to it. I'm talking about this area roughly through right in here. I know you can't see that. Let's change this color to red. We're talking about roughly this region right through here is the Nino 3.4 area, roughly. And so that's what I mean when I say the Nino 3.4 region is divided up into different regions. And this is that region. And look, the plummeting that has gone on is remarkable. And it really has. This kind of looks like the stock market a month ago when it dropped. Hey, at least that's coming back up, but that's a whole other story. Now down to just slightly negative at 0.029. Wow, what a rapid change from mid-April here until about mid-May. In just about a month's time, a little less than a month's time, the Nino region there that we most watch, that 3.4 area of the Pacific, really has cooled off. And again, we get more evidence of what's happening, or at least the forecast, from folks like Ben Knoll, He was on Hurricane U way back a few weeks ago, a great discussion about what these different charts and graphs and maps mean. And we call these thematic maps, where they show a theme. And in this case, it is the upward motion or the velocity potential pattern. And again, you can see what he's saying right here, that many long-range outlooks are calling for a particularly active hurricane season. Of course, he is referring to the Atlantic. And you can compare, this is what's really, really important about this, and I want you to understand. Think about a detective, somebody with the FBI, somebody in CSI trying to solve a crime. You have a fingerprint that is found on a piece of evidence, whatever it may be, the gun, the smoking gun, or the knife that was used as the murder weapon. You can take that fingerprint, maybe it's the thumbprint, and you can run it through the computer and see if it matches a known fingerprint in the database. And if it matches, you have a pretty good idea of who your culprit is, your suspect. Innocent until proven guilty, right? In this, and that's relevant. I'm not just being snarky. It's relevant to this. Here's the analogy. The fingerprint in this situation, in my analogy here, is this. This is the found fingerprint. The JMA is the fingerprint here. Japanese Meteorological Agency, I believe. This is June through August 2020. So this is the found fingerprint on the murder weapon. All right? So you follow me? This is the database that we compare it to. And what do we look at? Like, what does this mean? This is what it looks like going forward, the forecast. This is the database looking back at previous busy seasons, 17, 05, 04, 95, and 50. What did those velocity potential anomalies look like? It's almost a match. You see? Green and rising motion in the Indian Ocean spilling over here to Africa, right? Pay attention to this and to this here, with red and sinking here in the Pacific. That's what we have as the forecast. That's the fingerprint. That is the database to match it to. Wow. I mean, that's remarkable. You go back and you look at past seasons, and it gives you clues. That is really, really remarkable and should get your attention. And that's why we trust people like Ben NOAA, because he can put these remarkable graphics together. All right, so we know that hurricane season is coming, and it looks like it's going to be busy. Let's make sure we are ready. Now, look, I've talked about this. I just love it when at least I know what I'm talking about. The 850 millibar vorticity. Remember I said that as we get farther out or further out in time, we'll start to have less and less of the energy up here in the northern latitudes, the higher latitudes, and you'll start to see more energy clustering down here in the lower latitudes towards the tropics. Well, it's starting to happen. Look, a little bit more right here coming off of northwest South America. Some of it trying to get together over here in the southeastern Pacific. This is the outline of an old frontal boundary that's come down. Here's some more energy with this trough that's still left over in the east that gave us the snow and the cold, kind of a cold Mother's Day, right? And a little bit more out here in the open areas of the deep tropics, but that's not to worry about just yet. But it's starting. And of course it is. It's not like I have stumbled across some amazing discovery. It's just using our tools that we have. And in this case, this is from the University of Wisconsin, and their satellite, let's see who keeps texting me, their satellite derived products. The Cooperative Institute for Meteorological Satellite Studies, I do believe, is what they, CIMSS or something like that. And this is a great product. It shows us where energy, at least what I'm looking for, is bundling, where it's coming together. And up here in the high latitudes, that's not bundling. It's all spread out down here with this front. And so let's wait and see if something's trying to get together in the tropics where it bundles that energy, that heat energy, vorticity as we look for here. And when we see that, that's when we get to play detective again, and we know that we're looking at something that's trying to congeal and possibly form into a tropical cyclone, or maybe a loosely based subtropical cyclone or whatever. We can get to the details as they come, and they will come. It's only a matter of time. So what else do we have? Satellite image. That's right. So this is a satellite image. It's derived from satellites, but this is the more traditional satellite. And this is what's neat. See these bright colors right here? Well, if we look at it in this perspective, it's just the vorticity signature with colors. This is the actual satellite view. And there's that energy represented with clouds. I just think that's amazing. I mean, it doesn't take much to impress me when it comes to the weather. My wife teases me about that all the time. Oh, look, a pretty cloud. Take a picture. Anyhow, these pretty clouds show, what the vorticity signature showed. Energy stretched out, strong southwesterly winds here, and hardly any energy coming in here from the deep tropics. As we would expect, it's only May, so we don't have to worry about that too much. Now, let me bring me back on. There has been a little bit of uptick, as it were, in chatter on the internets, on the hurricane blogosphere, about maybe something trying to develop in this area of our world, our world, your world, over the next several days. It's possible. We have seen May development in several years, I think every year since 2012, or I don't know, I have to go back. It's been a lot. Maybe the last 5 years, I think, something like that. So it's not going to shock me at all if we get some kind of development in the vicinity of the northern Bahamas off the southeast coast. No, it's not a harbinger of bad things to come if we do get a developed system there. It's just the way things have changed lately. You can say maybe it's part of climate change. I don't know. It's only been a few years. There's no way to know for sure. But yes, we are seeing May development down off the southeast coast more often than not. We have these tools here, these satellite-derived products that help us to pick them out so they're not going undetected. That being said, it looks like we might have something trying to develop, and I'll show you that as we look at the GFS here. The GFS run from today, and this is the same area of the atmosphere, by the way, that this is. 850 millibars up. It's about 5,000 feet, and it's the vorticity signature in the atmosphere. And this is 6 hours out. There's 24. And what are we looking for, by the way? Just to familiarize you with this, in case you're new. Here's the southeast, mid-Atlantic southeast coast. There's Florida. Go around the Gulf Coast, and I'll leave this up as I move through the frames here. There's South America, Central America, etc. The Pacific side. All right, you got your bearings. There's Cuba right through there, so forth and so on. This would be the islands of the Caribbean. All right, you got your bearings? Good. Let's go forward in time. 24 hours, now we've got to 48. Still nothing down here. You can look all through here. I don't want to draw on it because I can't make just that disappear. I don't have layers, unfortunately. But look, there's nothing down there starting to bundle. See that? Now we move out to 72 hours. Keep your eyes, and I'll give you a little hint right here, in this area right here. You got this nice area of high pressure building over the north area, what we call it the top, top of the system, north of it. So watch what happens. That's 72. Finally at 96, something tries to get going. We'll take my telestration away, and you see it's trying to bundle that energy off the Bahamas. It's very loosely, come on, but that's what I'm looking for. That is the detective work that I'm talking about. We go back in time, starting at about hour 48, move it out. You see, that's what I'm looking for. This starts as a low pressure area off of some energy that's left over down in the Bahamas and vicinity as high pressure builds in over the southeast and then that over the Atlantic. It's going to be nice and warm over the east now, by the way. Summer's coming, trust me. After that cold Mother's Day, you might not believe me, but it's going to be there. Anyhow, this goes on to try to congeal. This is still 6 days out. We'll wait and see. Other models are hinting at it, but this gives us our first look at something that we might want to keep an eye on. What it will mean, if it comes to fruition in about 4 to 5 days, is a stormy pattern, maybe a wet pattern, squally, whatever, for portions of the northwest Bahamas. So folks down there, depending on where this happens, they're still obviously recovering from Dorian, that Cat 5. right? So, any weather, I guess you need the freshwater rainfall, but it doesn't take a hurricane to create problems. So we'll watch and see. Again, if this does go on to develop, it's not going to be any kind of a sign of things to come. I wouldn't worry about it, and it wouldn't have really much of a chance to get anywhere near the United States, even if it goes on to become, something intense. Don't worry about it. We're watching it. All right. It's also still severe weather season, of course. This is the day one outlook favoring western Texas, southeast New Mexico, and even a marginal risk of storms up here in parts of New England with that departing energy from the trough. There's a lot of lift and instability in the atmosphere there. This is more your traditional severe weather setup with thunderstorms, maybe supercells. The tornado threat, very low, only 2% there, but still 2%, 2 out of 100. Come on, right? Wind, a little bit higher concern, including New England there at 5%. And then your hail, 15%. And these are all available at the SPC website, by the way. I'm just wanting to go over this with you. That's today. Here's tomorrow. No big deal tomorrow. This might get upgraded tomorrow. You never know. But we're going to be heading into a period, as you can see there, as we get past mid-month, it's going to start to really light up in the traditional Tornado Alley area and probably expanding out into the Ohio Valley. And that is going to be my cue with my group, my team. We're going to go out there starting in about 2 weeks, roughly. We're heading out there not to tornado chase. We were just wanting to go out and do the weather balloon testing again. And it just so happens that the pattern looks like it's going to be favorable for some severe weather from time to time. So coming up here, Memorial Day, we're going to be heading out there. Brent is going to come up. He's one of our crowdfunding supporters from the Virgin Islands. And I have a friend of mine here in Wilmington. And we're going to all head out there. I'll talk about more of what we're going to do later. But it's just interesting that this is going to be coincidental, this new pattern change coming up, that we might actually have severe weather to contend with while we're testing the weather balloon out there in the Great Plains. But we'll talk about that more later. Before I get to, let me move this over. It's not time for that just yet. These other tabs, I want to talk about, look at this. I talked about it's hurricane season. It's always hurricane season somewhere. In the Westpac, the Western Pacific, the Philippines, what does that stand for? I always forget. Oh, they don't. Yeah, there it is. The Philippine Atmospheric Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration. Whew! I'm going to have to work on that. If I can rattle that off like I did with the CIMSS from Wisconsin, I'll be making progress. They got 6.1 million followers. Wow. Anyway, tropical depression, EMBO, as they call it in their area of responsibility, looks like it's going to amble. Hey, you see what I did there? Amble, like it's a way of kind of sliding in. AMBO is going to amble its way in towards the Philippines, it looks like. And there could be issues with this. Heavy rainfall, you bet. The possibility of, tropical storm, maybe a typhoon, it's hard to say. Computer models, some are strong, some are not. But be aware that this is out there. This is a satellite animation of it. Here are the Philippines. Remember, the Philippines are made up of a bunch of islands. It's not just one island. There's the depression, AMBO. So forecast maybe to move up towards this area. We'll see. We're going to certainly stay on top of it, just wanting you to be aware of it. With 6.1 million followers, I'm sure that the people that follow the Pagasa site there and the Twitter account, they're already well ahead of it, for what it's worth. But I'm just wanting to point it out, maybe up towards Manila eventually, so we'll see. Certainly something we'll keep track of. The GFS model for it, and yes, it does cover the Westpac. There it is right there. Again, talking about bundling energy. Let me get the telestration away. We can move this out into time as well. I'll show you what the GFS does. We'll use the slider. See it down there? Just point to it one more time for you. Right there. Watch that area right there. This is 48 hours out. And it does try to kind of barrel in, the GFS indicating it gets pretty solid there in the vorticity signature. And this is just what I watch, by the way. I do the same thing for hurricanes. I look at that vorticity signature, see where it's kind of loose and diffuse now, but as it progresses through the next few days, it really tightens up, bundles that energy over the Philippine Sea, very, very high ocean heat content, any time of the year, especially as we get towards summer and the warm months. And yeah, it comes in there and could be a problem, right? So we'll be watching this. I'll probably do another update on it on Wednesday to keep you guys abreast of that situation. And if you're not on board following these folks, you're missing out. Join the 6.1 and make it 6.2 million followers. Why don't you? All right, speaking of followers, we are crowdfunded. Patreon is how we do what we do. If you want to join up and support our work, you get access to a lot of great stuff. The podcast series, Stories from the Hurricane Highway, the new television style series that I'm working on called The Hurricane Highway. Let me get that blue arrow out of there. There we go. All of our original content is on there as well, and that's at the $1 level. $1 a month. Look at that. Just $1. Literally, think about this. I know this is cliche, but if just a quarter of my cumulative social media following, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, those are the big four that I participate in, if just 25% of that following, and I know that some people follow me on all four platforms, and that's why I'm choosing a relatively low number, just did the $1, I say just, forget about it, man. We'd have all the funding we would ever need. But it's more than just the funding. Funding is what makes the bills get paid, of course. When you go to work, you get the money, you pay your bills. But you go to work hopefully because you serve a purpose. Not everybody likes their job, but I love my job. And so this allows me and the people that I work with to do what we do. So there's a lot more to it than just being a member. You are supporting the future of this work. It goes up from there, $10, $25 per month. And it just depends on what level you are most comfortable being a patron at. I hate using a preposition at the end of my sentences, but there you go. I wasn't an English major. patreon.com/HurricaneTrack. Now, I want to show you something. I am going to put a link in the video discussion today to this. The paper, I talked about this a few weeks ago, but it's officially for sale now. I've only got 25 of them. Look at that. That's big. Look, it's bigger than my head. That is a nice size paper 2020 hurricane tracking map. I can never get it's like mirror image. Full color. I designed it. I got into this whole business 25 years ago by making hurricane charts. And that's actually my design. I made that myself. I didn't get it from some stock company. I drew it 15 years ago, and I've printed millions of these for companies like Lowe's and TV stations and radio stations, and I've produced them as part of hurricane awareness projects. And you can get the 2020 edition for just $20, including shipping, all flat rate. And I'll put a link to that. I'm only going to have 25 of them available because they are included at this level here on Patreon. So if you're a $25 patron, I'm sending you one of these as part of that patronage. Does that make sense? And I got to make sure I have enough for the patrons that we have. I only printed a certain amount. So I'm going to make 25 of these maps available to the general public. Whether or not you're a patron, you can purchase one of these. It's beautiful, man. It's got a piece of history right there waiting for you. I'll put it in an envelope. Yes, it'll be folded. I know the movie Twister, which came out this past weekend, 30-something years ago? No, whatever it is. It better not be 30 years ago. 1996 is when it came out. It was just this past weekend. Remember they said, roll the maps. It'll be folded, but it's okay. It'll be fine. Check out the link in the description of today's video. And once all 25 are gone, that's it. These are very expensive to print because I'm not printing a million of them. I only printed 150 or something like that. And so the cost per poster is a lot higher. And so, anyway, get it while supplies last, as they say. A lot to keep up with. We're heading into hurricane season, so I'll be in doing these updates more often than not now. I'll do another one on Wednesday specifically about the developing tropical system off the coast of the Philippines. Plus, we will know a little bit more about what might be developing off the southeast coast of the United States. So we'll just dive into that on Wednesday. All right? That's it. I'm done. Thanks as always for watching. I do appreciate it. Follow me at HurricaneTrack on Twitter, youtube.com/HurricaneTrack. Subscribe for future video posts, etc., all that good stuff. And most importantly, thank you. Thank you for tuning in. I do appreciate it. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. I'll talk to you all again on Wednesday.